My bold prediction on the Skate podcast before the season started was that Marco Sturm was going to win the Jack Adams Award. Now, listen, the nature of the conversation on WEEI's Escape podcast back in late September, it was meant to be a bold prediction, as in something that you don't think is going to happen. But if something crazy happens, what's that crazy thing that could happen? And I said, well, Marco Sturm will win the Jack Adams Award. And I was looked at like I had 10 heads, even though I thought that was a very fair, bold take to give. And the reason why I said that was, listen, this Boston Bruins team is not expected to do anything. Most people have them as a bottom 5, bottom 10 team in the league this year. So my thought process was very simple. If the Boston Bruins find a way to make the playoffs, then Marco Sturm has to be in consideration for the Jack Adams because he took a team that nobody outside that dressing room has believed in this offseason and made the postseason with them. He made the most with the least, or in theory, he would have. He would have made the most with the least. And so that was my bold prediction before the season started. And right now, it's coming to fruition. But it's interesting because the Vegas odds makers do not have him listed in even the top 10 of Jack Adams favorites. And again, if you aren't familiar with the Jack Adams Award, it is the award that's given to the NHL coach who has done the best job in that given season. So I want to add some context here because it's mind-boggling to me that Marco Sturm is not even listed in a top 10 of NHL coaches this year for the Jack Adams. And that's not me throwing shade at the other coaches. Believe you me, I have nothing but respect for all of the coaches on this list and what they've done with their respective teams. And I wholeheartedly think that a lot of them should be where they are. My whole thing, though, is that Marco Sturm should be right there alongside with them. And before the season started, Marco Sturm wasn't even listed in the top 22 NHL head coaches for preseason Jack Adams selections. There were 22 NHL head coaches that had odds to win a Jack Adams. Marco Sturm wasn't one of them. Okay, so that speaks to Vegas before the season not acknowledging Marco Sturm as a possibility. Okay, so put that off to the side for a second. Before the season started, Vegas also had the Boston Bruins finishing 28th in the NHL out of 32 teams with an over-under point total of 80.5. So let's recap for a second. Before the season started, Vegas did not list Marco Sturm in the top 22 coaches that could possibly win a Jack Adams. And they had the Boston Bruins finishing 28th out of 32 teams. Well, as I currently record, the Boston Bruins have 94 points in 76 games. So their over-under point total on the year for an 82-game schedule was 80.5. And they're at 94 with 76 games played. They're on pace for 100 points. The Boston Bruins are 43, 25, and 8. They are wild card 1. They're 4th in the Atlantic. They're 5th in the Eastern Conference, and they're 8th in the NHL. So they were predicted to finish 28th in the National Hockey League. And right now, with under 10 games to go in the regular season for all teams, they are 8th overall. Yeah, they're in the wild card in the East. Yeah, they're 4th in their own division. But they're 5th in their conference and they're 8th overall in the NHL. So somebody explained to me how a team that was projected to finish a bottom 5 team, being a top 10 team, and their head coach, who was a first-year head coach in the National Hockey League, isn't even listed among the top 10 favorites to win the Jack Adams Award for the top head coach in the NHL in a given season. Make that make sense to me, please. Now, I want to also say that there are a lot of deserving coaches that are listed. And there's a couple that are listed that, to me, even though they're doing a great job this year, and even though that they're great coaches, to me, aren't really in the spirit of the Jack Adams to me. And I'm going to name a couple of those guys. And again, I'm not trying to throw shade, but John Cooper, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Jared Bednar, the head coach of the Colorado Avalanche. These two guys, to me, are two of the they're among the best coaches in the NHL. There's no doubt about that. Okay? But to me, the spirit of the Jack Adams Award is the coach who did the best job. And when you look under the hood, to me, that's a coach who has optimized his roster. He's made the most out of the least. He's made the best meal with the worst ingredients. That, to me, is the nature of the Jack Adams Award. The Tampa Bay Lightning, everybody expected the Tampa Bay Lightning to be a playoff team. Everybody expected Tampa to be a top 3 team in the Atlantic, and many had them finishing first or second. Everybody had Tampa as a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference and a top 10 team in the NHL. They've been a perennial 100-plus point team for the last 10, 15 years. They've been to 3 Stanley Cup finals in the last 8 years, whatever it's been. They've got 2 cups to their name, all under the jurisdiction of head coach John Cooper. John Cooper was the head coach for Team Canada at the Olympics. I say all this to say that we expect the world out of John Cooper. The hockey world expects the most out of John Cooper. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is surprised that John Cooper and the Tampa Bay Lightning are where they are. And good for them for doing it. All the props in the world, but it's not surprising. It's not a story. I know Victor Hedman had injury issues this season. I know Braden Point's been out. I know Anthony Cirelli's been out. Tampa Bay has had their fair share of injuries. I know that. I'm not trying to discredit what they've done. All I'm trying to say is, for the most part, it's been kind of expected. And when you talk about omitting Marco Sturm, a guy that was not even listed in the top 22 coaches before the season as a candidate to win a Jack Adams, mainly because nobody believed his team could even be there. The reason Marco Sturm wasn't among those 22 names is because nobody thought Boston would have a season worth half a damn for him to even be acknowledged. And that's confirmed with Vegas predicting the Bruins to finish 28th overall in the NHL. So again, it makes no sense to me that Marco Sturm, based on the predictions for both him and the team entering the season and where they are currently with a 95% chance of making the playoffs, how they're not even in the conversation right now. Here's another name, Jared Bednar. Again, Colorado is the best team in the NHL. Is anybody surprised by that? That, to me, the Colorado Avalanche, they've been a top 10 team in the NHL for 7 straight seasons. And there's a Stanley Cup championship included in that time frame. The last time that they finished outside the top 10 in the overall NHL standings was the 18-19 season. So, again, I'm not saying that Jared Bednar isn't doing a phenomenal job this year and that the Colorado Avalanche aren't having an amazing season. They are. They are. They're the number 1 seed in the NHL right now. But is Jared Bednar making the most with the least? No. He's doing what he should be doing with the most. I mean, that roster is stacked. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, right there you have 2 of the top 4 players in the world. So Marty Necas is an absolute animal. Brock Nelson's an amazing player. They have a ton of speed and skill on that team. Nobody is surprised that the Colorado Avalanche are the first place team in the NHL right now and the odds-on favorites to win the Stanley Cup. So again, amazing job by the Avs and by Bednar, but to me, him being at least over Sturm, it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me when you consider the nature of what this award should be, which should be for. Now, here are some names that make total sense to me. Lindy Ruff with the Buffalo Sabres makes total sense. Lindy Ruff has turned that Buffalo team around. They're going to break their 14-year playoff drought. They did not have a good start to this season, and they've been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal for the last 3-4 months. Rick Bowness with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, this one to me, even this one to me is a little bit over Sturm. I mean, Bowness came in halfway through the year, and he turned that Blue Jackets season around in incredible fashion. Bowness should be on this list. He should be on this list. I'm not saying he shouldn't. But again, Marco Sturm's been there all season long. And the Bruins have been doing this all season long, and they've had their ups and downs as well. So I'm okay with Bowness on this list for the spirit of the award, more so than a John Cooper or a Bednar. But again, I don't see why Marco Sturm's not on this list either. Joel Quenneville with the Anaheim Ducks. Sure, no problem. Quenneville's first year back in the NHL coaching and whatever it's been, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how long his suspension was, but that Anaheim Ducks team, they have a ton of speed and skill, a lot of youth, but they needed the proper guidance and a system to get themselves to where they are, which right now is a playoff team. And I believe that they're the top team in the Pacific, which is, by the way, the weakest division in hockey this year, but nonetheless. Dan Muse in Pittsburgh. Now, this is very comparable to Marco Sturm in Boston. I have no issue with Dan Muse on this list. He should be on this list. 11 out of 10 times Dan Muse should be on this list. Nobody, and I mean nobody, had the Pittsburgh Penguins making the playoffs this year. Similar to Boston, everybody had them as a bottom 5, bottom 10 team. In fact, a lot of the narrative around the Pittsburgh Penguins this offseason was, which team is Sidney Crosby going to accept a trade to at the deadline to go win a cup? Or try to win a cup. So Dan Muse has done a fantastic job in Pittsburgh. And I think similar to Marco Sturm, he has made the most with the least. Or so we thought, right? Ryan Warsofsky with San Jose. Again, this is a good one to me. San Jose is on the playoff bubble in the West, and nobody expected them to finish as a playoff team. Everybody had them as still a team that's rebuilding and will probably finish towards the bottom despite having a ton of talent. And Macklin Celebrini has gone on an unbelievable pace for a 19-year-old with 100 points already this season. And so, yes, you can look at Ryan Warsofsky and say he should be in this conversation. I agree. He should be, because he's taken a San Jose Sharks team that everybody expected to be a bottom 5, 10 team again. And they're on the playoff bubble right now. They're, I think, 1 point out of a playoff spot in the Western Conference. But the Bruins have 20 more points than San Jose. So it's a great story that San Jose in the West is a bubble playoff team, and Ryan Warsofsky is the man behind the bench to do it. That's amazing. But the Bruins have 20 more points, and they're in a more competitive division and conference. So I don't know why Marco Sturm is being completely overlooked. It's not even that these guys are probably being looked. I don't think these guys shouldn't be here. Again, I think John Cooper and Jared Bednar, that's like Bill Belichick winning the Coach of the Year for the Patriots when he was already the greatest coach in the league. Like, this award is not for coaches who are doing what you expect them to do with rosters that we expected them to win with. It's about which coach, took a roster that people really didn't have high hopes for and did something with. So I don't know. Ultimately, I think like Marty St. Louis is another one. Marty St. Louis, I think he should be on this list. But even Montreal, with all their speed, skill, and youth, they made the playoffs last year. Most people had the Canadiens as a playoff team this year. Most people did. So the fact that Montreal is third place in the Atlantic Division, only 4 points up on Boston. Again, why is Marco Sturm not in the conversation? So I know this has probably turned into a bit of a rant, but somebody make it make sense to me.